The family of Gordon Sanderson did not yet know that the missing brother and father they grieved for was the same man at the center of Alberta's most baffling cold case. For them, his disappearance was a painful silence, and for investigators, his identity was still hidden behind decades of dead ends. It was not until 2020 that the decades-old mystery finally began to unravel. Advances in genetic genealogy had changed the way cold cases could be approached, and the RCMP decided to send the degraded DNA samples from the Tofield case to a private lab in Texas. The lab, specializing in extracting usable profiles from difficult evidence, worked meticulously to reconstruct a complete DNA profile from material that had been considered nearly useless for decades. Once the profile was complete, investigators uploaded it to public genealogy databases. This approach allowed them to trace familial connections, a method that had previously solved several high-profile cold cases in the United States. Within months, the investigation took a major step forward. The DNA matched a living relative, a woman who had submitted her own genetic sample for genealogical purposes, unknowingly connecting herself to the long-missing man. After confirming the match with a direct DNA test, the RCMP finally gave the man his name back. 43 years after he was discovered in the septic tank near Tofield, he was identified as Gordon Edwin Sanderson. Born in Manitoba in 1950, he had been 26 years old at the time of his death. Gordon had been living in Edmonton in the mid-1970s and had lost contact with his family years earlier. This identification provided a critical human context to the cold case. What had been a faceless mystery now had a face and a story. Investigators could finally explore his social circle, his last known movements, and the circumstances that led to his death. The renewed investigation shifted from seeking a name to seeking justice, focusing on the possibility that people close to him at the time might have been involved. With Gordon's identity restored, his family could finally grieve with the knowledge of what happened to their brother and father. They were able to see him as a person, rather than just the victim of a violent crime, understanding that the man called Septic Tank Sam had been a son, a sibling, and a father. The breakthrough also renewed public interest in the case, encouraging witnesses who had remained silent for decades to come forward with potential information. Although the murder occurred over 40 years ago, investigators believe the killer was likely someone Gordon knew, and the level of planning suggests a personal motive. The brutality of the crime indicated anger or revenge, making it unlikely to have been a random act of violence. Police continue to analyze any new information with modern forensic techniques, hoping that digital records, old police reports, or personal recollections might finally lead to the perpetrator. The story of Gordon Sanderson is a reminder of the dedication of investigators and the importance of never giving up on cold cases. It shows how persistence, combined with technology, can finally give victims a name, a story, and a chance for justice. Although the answers may have taken more than 40 years, the renewed investigation continues, holding hope that the person responsible will one day be held accountable. YouTube outro. And so, the identity of Septic Tank Sam was revealed, but the mystery of his murder continues. The case of Gordon Sanderson is a powerful reminder of the importance of persistence and technology in the search for truth. What are your theories on what might have happened? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please remember to hit the like button and share it with others who appreciate these stories. And if you haven't already, subscribe now for more deep dives into the world's most compelling unsolved mysteries. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hello, mystery lovers, and welcome to another video. Today's story is about a chilling discovery, a mystery that took more than 4 decades to begin unraveling. Before we dive into this case, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the bell for all notifications, and hit that like button. It really helps our work. Now, let's uncover what happened to Gordon Sanderson. Start of video narration. In the spring of 1977, a quiet patch of farmland outside the small community of Tofield, Alberta, became the center of one of Canada's most baffling mysteries. On April 13th, a couple went to an abandoned property near Lynbrook to remove a septic tank pump, expecting nothing more than a dirty, but simple job. Instead, they uncovered a discovery that would puzzle investigators for decades. Hidden inside the tank, beneath layers of debris, was the body of an unidentified man. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police were quickly called to the scene. With limited equipment available, officers had to painstakingly empty the tank by hand using buckets, a grim and exhausting task. What they uncovered was unlike anything most officers had seen before. The remains were wrapped and bound, suggesting someone had gone to deliberate lengths to conceal the victim. It was immediately clear this was no accident. It was a carefully hidden crime. At the time, rural Alberta was sparsely populated, and the location of the septic tank added to the mystery. It was not the kind of place a stranger would stumble upon. Whoever left the man there had to be familiar with the property and confident the site would keep the secret buried. This raised the first big question for investigators. Was the crime tied to someone local, or had the location been chosen because it was remote and isolated? The RCMP faced another immediate challenge. The victim carried no identification. His clothing, while examined, did not point to a specific missing person. There were no personal belongings to help identify him, and investigators couldn't even be sure of his background. Without a name, the case already felt impossible. As the investigation began, police gave the man a grim nickname that would linger for decades: Septic Tank Sam. The name would soon spread across Alberta, becoming a symbol of one of the province's darkest unsolved mysteries. For the community around Tofield, the discovery was shocking. Stories of the unknown man spread quickly, and whispers of what had happened traveled far beyond the rural roads where he had been found. Despite the strange circumstances, the discovery did not provide many answers. It raised more questions than it solved. Who was this man? Why had he been targeted? And most importantly, who had gone to such lengths to try to erase him from existence? These questions would hang over the case for years, as investigators faced one of the most puzzling starts to a homicide investigation in Alberta's history. Once the remains were recovered in April of 1977, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police began one of their most difficult investigations. They knew from the start that the man's death was not random. The way he had been hidden suggested planning and determination, and the condition of the body pointed to an effort to keep his identity secret. For investigators, the very first challenge was to determine who he was. The RCMP began by carefully documenting every piece of evidence. The man had been dressed in clothing that included denim jeans, a Levi's shirt, and imitation wallaby shoes. His teeth showed signs of extensive dental work, which investigators thought might be the key to identifying him. At the time, dental records were one of the most reliable tools for identification, and police checked missing persons files across Canada. Unfortunately, no match was found. Adding to the difficulty, the original medical examination mistakenly described the man as Caucasian. This error would follow the case for years, leading investigators down the wrong path and ruling out people who might have otherwise been considered. In reality, the victim was of Indigenous background, but this would not be recognized until much later. That early mistake closed doors before the investigation even had a chance to move forward. The RCMP worked through possible connections to the Tofield area. The property where the body was found had been abandoned, but investigators believed whoever chose it had known the farm well. Rural properties are not easily accessed, and this one was even more secluded. Officers considered whether the person responsible was a local, someone familiar with the farmland, or a person who visited the area often enough to feel confident it would not be disturbed. With limited leads, investigators turned to the public for help. Sketches and information about the man's clothing were shared in newspapers and on local radio. Tips came in, but none led to a solid identification. For the community, the mystery became unsettling. People in and around Tofield spoke quietly about the case, unsure whether the crime had been committed by a stranger passing through or by someone who lived nearby. By the end of the 1970s, the investigation was at a standstill. Without a name, there was no way to trace the victim's life, his friends, or his family. Investigators were left with evidence that showed cruelty and planning, but no clear suspect. The case file grew thicker with reports, but the most basic detail, who the man was, remained unanswered. It was becoming clear that solving the case would take something far beyond the tools available at that time. As the years passed into the early 1980s, the mystery of the man found near Tofield remained unsolved. Despite limited progress, the RCMP refused to close the file. They knew the case represented more than just a violent crime. It was also about restoring dignity to someone who had been denied even his name. To investigators, solving the mystery meant giving him back an identity. In 1979, a forensic artist created a clay reconstruction of what the victim might have looked like in life. This model was shown to the public in the hope that someone would recognize him. The lifelike reconstruction generated attention, but no confirmed identifications followed. For the community, it served as a stark reminder that this was not just a set of bones, but a person who once lived, laughed, and belonged somewhere. Throughout the 1980s and into the 1990s, the case became known among police as the Tofield John Doe. The file remained active, though years often passed without new leads. Technology had not yet advanced to the point where DNA testing could offer answers, and with the mistaken belief that the victim was Caucasian, searches of missing persons records continued to focus on the wrong background. This misstep kept the investigation stalled for decades. Despite the lack of breakthroughs, investigators made sure the case was never forgotten. New officers assigned to the detachment were introduced to the file, keeping the story alive within the RCMP. Forensic techniques were reviewed as science advanced, but each attempt ended with the same frustration. The body's secrets remained locked away. By the 2000s era, hope began to rest more on future technology than on traditional police work. DNA databases were becoming a powerful new tool, and officers began to see the possibility that, one day, the unidentified man might finally be named. The RCMP preserved what evidence they could, ensuring that when the science caught up, the case could be reopened with stronger methods. During all this time,